Yes! So I get excited when new ITX cases, but what's more exciting, a new ITX case from Phanteks. The Shift and the Shift X are here. This is the Shift X. Okay, let's roll the intro.
Invest in storage that makes a difference. Choose Toshiba RD400 NVMe SSDs that are incredibly fast and reliable, backed by advanced warranty programs, so you can focus on what matters. RD400. Check it out in the description below.
So the Phanteks EVOLV Shift and the Shift X have a very unique take on an ITX system that allows you to vertically display the case on your desk or lay it horizontally for an HTPC type of situation for your living room. In this video, we'll only be taking a look at the Shift, and the Shift X will have to be another time because I want to build in both and see how they differ. So yeah, why are they still inside the case? Let's check it out.
Alright, so priced at $110, the EVOLV Shift is one of the more premium ITX cases, but for a good reason. As the name suggests, it's meant to blend in or shift with any environment thanks to looking pretty from pretty much any angle. I personally love the towering character, especially because the footprint is the length of a GTX 1070 while not being much wider. This means the Shift is perfectly capable of living on your desk as long as you're fine with the height, which is about the same height as my EVOLV ATX, but of course it is much thinner. I do appreciate how cohesive the design language is for the entire EVOLV lineup, not only because of the sandblasted aluminum, but the similar ventilation ports at the front or the similar bends around the frame.
Now there is some resemblance to the Corsair One, but you cannot buy that separately, so if you've been wanting that experience, and I've been really pushing for more vertical cases in the ITX space, now the Shift is the perfect alternative.
In terms of the I/O, it's on the left side at the back with only two USB 3 ports, so there are no audio jacks in here to keep things clean, although a hidden headphone jack somewhere here would have been sweet. In terms of the horizontal orientation, it's possible thanks to the symmetrical look of the top and the bottom. You have to remove the case feet at the bottom first, which have two mounting positions. If you want a very thin profile, you can move them in a little bit, which have less stability. But for horizontal orientation, you need to apply these soft pads that feel okay, but almost like an afterthought, that are only a one-time use and have no real protection for the glass. The glass panels perfectly complement the visual appeal of the Shift from all those sides, but of course it is see-through, so you just gotta be careful with cable management. Thin end caps appear on the exterior of the glass, behind which mounting brackets are installed, and you can access all four side panels through the top with adjacent sides using the same tooling, and thus actually minimizing the cost of the Shift. And each panel is attached with two captive thumb screws at the top, and with all of them being hidden, it allows the exterior to look super clean. The top panel sits on this push pin, so it's easy to access your I/O, and we have the power and RGB cycle button at the top here as well that controls the thin power LED or the optional LED strips that you can connect at the top as well.
The user manual that comes with the EVOLV Shift is the best I've ever come across on the PC case, and I've been reviewing cases for how long? Usually they're like black and white, very bad resolution. Everything here is color-coded, very nice resolution. It's clearly laid out in terms of the assembly process, what parts you need to remove, and compatibility for other hardware, water cooling. Everything, absolutely everything that you need is in here. So if you're just getting into this ITX space and want to get yourself familiar with the Shift or the Shift X, this is your friend.
For dust filtration, the top panel is covered so nothing percolates through. The bottom panel has a filter for the intake fan, and both the front and back panels have side filters that are removable for cleaning, which are super fine, and the front panel also has that middle divider to separate airflow between the bottom and the top chambers.
So what they've been able to achieve for the interior is pretty unique, simply taking advantage of that vertical space and minimizing the compromises that you would otherwise get with such a tiny, compact footprint. So the GPU has been moved to the back using this riser card, and because of this vertical space, you can mount anything up to 350 millimeters in length, as long as it's a dual slot GPU. For the air cooling for the CPU is not really recommended, simply because there's not that much clearance between the side panel and the motherboard area. So I was going to use this Shadow Rock LP Be Quiet cooler, but it simply sticks out when I mount it and just not compatible. So really you want to be using a 120mm all-in-one liquid cooler for your CPU, which will mount it either at the bottom or the front. The unique thing about this enclosure is it can house two 120mm radiators, so if you want to cool your CPU and the GPU with dual radiators, that's a possibility. And for storage, I mean, it's a very compact space, but you can still mount dual SSDs over here, and on the front here, I've mounted a 3.5-inch drive, but also if you relocate one of the caddies, SSD caddies to the front, that's a possibility. The one good thing about having a 3.5-inch drive at the back of the case is it's further away from you, so if it's making any noise, you know, it won't be as audible as if it was, for example, at the front or something like that. But also, it's not very comfortable to mount because you have to actually screw things from the inside, which is not easy to access. But as far as cable management goes, it's very well aligned to the cutouts, and you can pass pass all the SATA cables and everything like that just fine for this drive. As far as the power supply goes, SFX or SFXL units are supported, and the mounts here with intake over there. So this area is really there to accommodate those dual 120mm radiators if you decide to go that route.
Whew, it's been a long day. There were a few hiccups along the way. First of all, Fred was nowhere to be found. Boom. But the second hiccup came during my assembly process with the power supply mount, where the plastic housing around the power button interfered with the metal frame, so I could not align the mounting holes. So I had to turn the power supply around, so the fan was intaking air from the interior and not from the exterior. But Phanteks confirms compatibility with all SFX and SFXL power supplies from Corsair, Silverstone, and Lee. It's just that odd the thing happening with the housing around the power button on my non-modular SFX power supply from Silverstone. And after my conversation with Phanteks, they will actually thin out that metal piece in the middle to accommodate for this particular power supply, maybe others that have that similar bulky thing around the power button. So yeah. So moving along, I really like the GPU bracket on the other side that you can slide to support taller GPUs, and also makes cable installation easier and actually installation of the actual GPU easier as well. You just have to keep in mind the power supply height and the height of your bottom radiator if it's there. I have the blower style GPU facing the interior for better airflow. This is what Phanteks recommends, but the bracket can also be flipped if you're inclined to show off your graphics card. For cable management, we have this middle channel with a magnetic door that hides a bunch of cables and these dual rubber grommets underneath to pass things from the bottom chamber. I think it's an okay design. I just wish that we could secure the flappy door somehow to allow thicker concentration without it opening because of all the cables sticking out. Now, important thing to remember that your enjoyment of an ITX experience is derived not only from a case, which can be user-friendly all you want, but if your hardware is not compatible to suit that ITX direction, then your experience will suffer. And I just realized how poor the layout of my motherboard is for cable routing. Not sure why I've been using this motherboard for years now. I wish that the RAM slots were swapped without cable area so the cables are not crossing over the motherboard, and this happens every single time I use an ITX case. And I couldn't even reach the USB 3 cable, I had to leave it out. Now, because the motherboard is facing up, getting your I/O connected requires a little bit of extra care on how you handle that cable exit, especially since they are coming from the top. I wish Phanteks would have included some sort of clips that you can attach to the back of the case so that when cables exit, they follow a certain structure and not just spewed out of the case. Alright, so upon further inspection, instead of routing all the cables to the top, like I just showed you guys, which didn't look that great, you can instead route them through the bottom where the power supply cable sits. And that's because there are two Velcro straps that are one above the SSD, one below, and I thought they're just used for the drives, but of course they can be used to secure your I/O cables coming from the top all the way through the bottom. So with an SSD, everything fits no problem. Of course, if you had a 3.5-inch drive, that would leave a little bit less room. So maybe like a mouse cable would be maybe wrap around, but this makes the system a lot cleaner when things are just coming from the bottom and not from the top. So I have a mouse, keyboard, power cable, and an HDMI cable for the graphics card, all connected, and everything is very well hidden and looks so much better. So yeah, very nice that Phanteks thought of this routing situation.
Oh hey there, ncix.com is Canada's leading e-tailer for anything your mind desires. Just keep within those categories, which are plenty, and get tempted by the weekly deals. Visit ncix.com for all them sweet deals. The summer is here. Woo!
And so my experience with the Phanteks EVOLV Shift ends here. I realized that I need a new ITX motherboard that has an upgraded layout. I need a modular power supply so I could clean some of those cables up, because everything is see-through, so you have to be mindful on how you clean all these cables up. So what do you guys think of this towering form factor for the ITX direction? I'm excited to see a lot of mods and see what type of water cooling things people can come up with in this form factor, especially because it occupies so little footprint on your desk. It's a very appealing enclosure to complement your workspace. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Make sure to subscribe for more similar content. Check out all these other relevant reviews. Stay tuned for the Shift X review coming very soon, and we'll see you in the next video.